Welcome back to Kemper Arena, Kansas City, Missouri. Dick Enberg with gold medalist Mary Lou Retton and Bart Connor from '84 on the road to Seoul. These are the U.S. Gymnastics Championships. The balance beam individual finals. In 6th place, Missy Marlowe.
And this is the mount that she had trouble with in the all-around. She didn't have trouble this time. It was very well performed. Her hips were straight.
Missy studies ballet twice a week, and it is really reflected in this event.
It does. It really shows. She's a very elegant beam worker. Her movements are a lot slower. That's just Missy's style. There's a nice gainer back layout. Two leap series. That is a requirement now on the balance beam. 2 leaps in a row.
70 to 90 seconds, the requirement to perform on the beam, and a bell will sound with 5 go.
Back walkover, straddle down.
She's so elegant at times, she forgets she's just 15 years old.
She really works with a lot of maturity. She's traveled all over the world and does have a lot of experience. Straddle jump on the side. That's very hard to land because it is on the width of the beam. And that's a pose my competitor in 1984, Ekaterina Szabo, did. Hear the bell. She only has 5 seconds to get off of the beam. Double back somersault. Nice routine for Missy.
Yeah, the key was the mount. She fell off trying to perform that mount, and the all-around, it cost her 0.5 of a point.
Watch her hip placement here. It's straight this time, and in the all-around competition, her leg went up and she fell off.
Little backward step on the dismount, however.
Yes, it was nice and high, and she just wasn't ready for it. She took 2 steps back, and that's a 10th each step.
The judges liked it. 9.70 for Missy Marlowe. That's the best optional score on the beam in this championship. Next up, Christy Phillips. She's the leader on the balance beam at the McDonald's 1987 U.S. Championships, and she loves this event.
Watch this mount. It's almost inhuman what Christy does. She presses up to a handstand. She'll bring her feet all the way around and place them between her hands.
The keen Romanian eye of Coach Bella Caroli. Always there. Did that bother you, his omnipresence?
Not at all. In fact, it was always give you that confidence, that go ahead.
Communication between mentor and pupil.
Back straddle down. Christy only has 1 required skill left in the routine, but first, the famous Phillips.
Good.
It's incredible, Christy's back flexibility. She's the only one in the world doing that skill right now. She's getting prepared for the side semi. Straight hips. Very solid. This really has been an incredible beam routine. Incredible meet for Christy. The dismount.
Easy.
A nice high double back somersault. Good landing for Christy Phillips.
That was a great one.
Bella Caroli, Mr. Positive.
This is one of the highest dismounts I've ever seen Christy do. Watch the takeoff from the beam up into the air. She's so high up there into a landing. She is such a pro at these landings. Her mount, Christy's mount, she does a press up to a handstand. Her hands are about shoulder width on the beam. Now she's going to bring her toes around, all the way around, and place them between her hands.
This is definitely an oh my. And remindful of another Olga Korbut. She introduced those back bend moves in the Olympics of 1972. What a score, 9.80 for Christy Phillips as she wins the finals, the balance beam, defeating Kelly Garrison Steves. By the way, Phillips now has medaled in every event in which she's competed, only the Florex to go. Melissa Marlowe is third. Over at the rings, no surprise there, Scott Johnson tearing up the competition in this event.
Scott really did just rip through another ring routine. I have such a tremendous amount of respect for him as a competitor on this event because he shows all the important qualities. He's a good swinger, and yet he's very strong. This was undoubtedly the most difficult event for me. I could never quite do it just like this.
Look at that position.
Perfect form, excellent swing, and look at the height on this dismount.
And the fans here in Kansas City loved it. The veteran Olympian Scott Johnson fully recognizes the value of relating to the crowd, and he readily admits he plays to the audience.
It gives me a little bit more confidence, especially if the crowd is backing you up 100%. I think that was a big asset to us winning at the 1984 Olympic Games, was that it was in Los Angeles, we had our home court, and the crowd was just chanting USA. You know what that was like. And it gives you a little bit more confidence, and of course you try to play to that a little bit, and it makes it a lot more fun.
A gold to go with his all-around for Scott Johnson. In the rings, Chris Laux, a Penn State All-American second, and UCLA's Mike Chaplin third. Coming up, more Sports World. Gymnastics Championships. Injuries have played a major role in this competition, and that's the subject of today's Sports Journal.
Today's edition of Sports Journal for Sunday, July 5th is brought to you by Bud Light. Everything else is just a light.
Gymnastics, leaps and somersaults of physical poetry. The height of athletic power and virtuosity. But a sport which finds itself on a balance beam, where perfection is a narrow bridge over danger. At the highest level of gymnastics, the safety zone may be as short as a man's fingers. A twist of fate, the difference between a good landing and a crash landing. Now, just 1 year before the Olympics, injuries have staggered the U.S. national gymnastics team. Injuries have kept 9 of America's best men and women from competing in these championships. Why are so many hurt? A frightening answer was offered by gold medal coach Bella Caroli. Gymnastics is so difficult, so treacherous, staying alive is an accomplishment.
We have to push the limit further and further because that's the history, that's the trend, that's how you can be better and better, that's how we become the winner. And on this situation we know we have to count always a certain percentage of risk, a risk of the injury.
We're in a sport where in the judging category you have a requirement of risk. There's 2/10 of a point given to a gymnast for risk. So if you want to win, if you want to get a 10.0, you have to do a risky skill, either a dangerous skill or one that's difficult to perform in competition.
Risk is this sport's irony. A gymnastics community that loves to promote risk as it relates to spectacle and athletic achievement often denies risk as it relates to danger and injury.
I think our sport has gotten a bad rap because we're looking at insurance claims, we're looking at dollars, and when we see only 1% of our premium dollars being paid out in medical claims, obviously there's not much of a problem.
And statistically, there isn't a problem if you count all 50,000 members of the U.S. Gymnastics Federation. But America's best are suffering the worst. Phoebe Mills, the number 2 rated woman in the U.S., is out with injuries.
I have multiple fractures in my heel, and the Achilles tendon is pulling away from the bone.
Olympic gold medalist Tim Daggett fell from a high bar in February and is recovering from a broken neck.
Of course, my injury was very dangerous and very scary, and you know, I'm just very pleased that I'm able to walk around and be able to do the sport again.
But not all injuries are traumatic. Some are the result of overuse. Christy Phillips competes with a stress fracture in her wrist and has ignored doctors' requests it be allowed to heal in a cast.
We're seeing a lot of what we term overuse injuries. where kids are just beating themselves down into the ground. They're working out in the gym 5 to 6 hours a day, plus competing in minor and major competitions on almost a year-round basis.
The U.S. Gymnastics Federation doesn't keep injury statistics, but the NCAA has. In a study of 7 college sports from 1983 to 86, it found women's gymnastics had the highest rate of injuries incurred during practice and the highest rate of injuries requiring surgery, even more than football. A concerned USGF is aggressively tackling the problem with a safety manual, mailings of safety updates, coaches' clinics, and a comprehensive safety video targeted for everyone in the sport. A video that starts with a scare.
I was a national champion in gymnastics, but then one day I made a mistake. I landed on my head on the mat. I broke my neck and I became a quadriplegic. Now I'm in a wheelchair.
Diane Ellingson's tragedy grabs everyone's attention. But in the rush for Olympic gold, will our athletes and coaches forget? Especially when we're chasing the world champion Soviets.
Almost death-defying tricks are the direction that they want gymnastics to go, and you have to realize they are the world's leader right now in gymnastics. The Soviets are doing things that are so far above what any of us could perceive maybe a year ago. And if you really care about competing, you have to challenge those things. You have to go out and try to do the things they're doing, and then even more reach a step above, because if you only copy what they do, at best you can be second to them.
As our level gets higher and higher, and as we try to compete with the Soviets and the Chinese, and as those levels get, to the point where we have to do something very drastic in order to make that advancement, then we are at risk.
I feel that we can definitely stay with them. The skills I was doing were comparable to what the Soviets were doing, and I feel that we can maintain that and we can even go past.
The Soviets are doing crazy skills, the Americans are doing more difficult skills, and I don't see it stopping.
It's hard to imagine that it could go much further, but every time you turn around, it does.
In gymnastics, as in auto racing, the threshold of danger is different for every competitor. The outer limits impossible to define, and safety impossible to ensure. In the gymnastics of tomorrow, the most difficult trick of all will be balancing the realities of safety against the spectacle of risk. For NBC Sports Journal, I'm Greg Lewis.
Do these 1987 U.S. championships relate to the 88 games? Let's go back 4 years with Mary Lou and Bart.
Mary Lou, with this team here, looking ahead to the 88 games, we're about a year and a half away. Let's take a look back to a year and a half prior to the 84 games. Were you pleased with where you stood, with where your progress was at that time?
Bart, I really wasn't. I was not pleased where I was standing. I was third in the 1983 USA Championships. And it was a very frustrating year for me. And I told myself, after this competition, I'm really going to work hard. I'm going to work on flexibility, which was a very weak point in my gymnastics. And I went back and I worked hard, and I came back in 1984 and won the title, the first time for me.
Now, were you adding a lot of difficulty at that time, or was it still fine-tuning, polishing?
From 1983 to 1984, I put difficulty into my routines, but then towards the competition, USA Championships, I started to polish and I started to fine-tune my routines so they would be clean when I came into the competition. What about you, Bart? Where were you standing in 1983?
Actually, 83 was a very rough year for me because I had placed 9th in the championships. Every year for the 10 years prior to that, I had been 1st, 2nd, or 3rd on the national team. I fell off the high bar in the compulsory round and the optional round. It was a very bad time for me. So I knew that I needed some improvement. I went back home, I added some difficulty to my exercises, and much like you, the last 6 or 8 months prior to the Olympic Games was just fine-tuning and polishing.
Well, in 84, one of Mary Lou's strengths, the women's floor exercise. And these are the finals going in. It's Christy Phillips in the lead, going for her 3rd gold. Stacy Gunthorpe and Melissa Marlowe.
You have to do it. You gotta go. It's like hell, man. Okay. Try to breathe. Try to dance it nice. Feels nice. But breathe it. Try to breathe. Try to relax before the last one. Okay? No.
Bella's reminding Christy to save her energy for her last pass because it is the most critical one.
Christy Phillips has so much to remember, including, as you know, Mary Lou, playing that smile to the very top row.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with, how the crowd appreciates your routine that you just did. And, I like to smile.
it's, you know, it's fun and it really gets me in better moods, and it just helps my performance.